This anime is set in a world where magic truly exists. While ordinary people can use magic, only royalty or noble families are able to master it fully. Because of that, when commoners try to use magic, they are mercilessly eliminated. One of those commoners who was killed by nobles is reincarnated as Lloyd, the 7th prince of the royal family that rules the Saloum kingdom. Not long after his birth, Lloyd shows incredible magical talent. He can cast a fireball strong enough to destroy the castle's rooftop. Years later, Lloyd grows into a cheerful young boy. But because of his deep fascination with magic books, he often hides from the maids and skips other activities. Being much younger than his older brothers, most people believe he doesn't need special attention. Still, there are rumors that he might be the reincarnation of William Bolt, a legendary figure respected among mages. Lloyd doesn't care about such things. His only interest is the vast collection of magic books in the castle. One day, as he's about to read one of those books, his caretaker Silpha asks him to train in sword fighting. During the session, Lloyd uses magic to copy Silpha's movements. To gain the upper hand, he cheats by casting enhancement and floating spells. It doesn't take long for Silpha to notice, but instead of getting angry, she praises his cleverness. Later, while Silpha takes Lloyd to the bath, the maids talk about a demon sealed in the underground library. They say the demon once brought the kingdom to the brink of destruction. They told the story to scare Lloyd, but instead, it made him even more curious. That midnight, Lloyd sneaks into the underground library. Using light reflection magic, he passes through the entrance undetected by the guards. According to one of them, it's impossible for any intruder to break in since the door is protected by seals from 10 different mages. But Lloyd destroys the seal effortlessly. Inside the forbidden library, Lloyd starts reading a mysterious book. But suddenly, the demon sealed within appears before him. His name is Grim, a powerful grimoire demon. He offers Lloyd gold in exchange for breaking the seal. But Lloyd has no interest in gold. He only wants to reseal the demon to protect the castle. However, when Grim offers a knowledge of ancient magic, Lloyd doesn't hesitate. He breaks the seal, but instead of teaching, Grim attacks him with brutal force. Surprisingly, Lloyd doesn't panic. He watches Grim's attack with pure excitement, even trying to touch the spell to feel its effect firsthand. After carefully observing Grim's magic, Lloyd counters with a fireball of his own. Just one spell is enough to defeat Grim, who then surrenders and agrees to serve him. The next day, Albert, the 2nd prince of the Saloum kingdom, visits the library to see his younger brother. Later, they practice magic shooting in an open field. Albert is praised because every shot hits the target perfectly. Lloyd, however, doesn't want to draw attention or get involved in the battle for the throne, so he intentionally misfires his spells just a little. Seeing this, Albert's followers claim Lloyd is far inferior, but Albert already knows about his younger brother's hidden power. He says nothing and lets Lloyd do as he pleases. After Albert leaves, Lloyd, now alone, feels inspired to try new things. One of them is the double incantation spell shown earlier by Grim. At first, Grim said that humans couldn't possibly use double casting because it would require a second mouth. But Lloyd figured out how to do it, by placing Grim inside his hand. Later, to cast hundreds of spells at once, Lloyd attempted a high-level dual incantation. But the energy it produced was far too much to fire into the ground, so he aimed it at the sky to avoid large-scale destruction. The blast was so powerful, it darkened the sky like nighttime and tore apart the atmosphere itself. The next day, Lloyd's experiment had already become major news throughout the kingdom. But instead of worrying about it, Lloyd became interested in an article about adventurers who conquered a dungeon. Inspired by their story, he decided to explore a dungeon of his own. To escape the castle, he created a clone of himself and asked Grim to control it. Though the escape was a success, Lloyd had no idea where to find a dungeon. That's when he saw a girl being chased by monsters. With incredible martial arts, she defeated them instantly. Lloyd had read about a technique called kijutsu, a form of martial arts from a distant land that uses breathing techniques to unleash extraordinary strength. As he watched, the girl noticed him. To hide his identity as a prince, Lloyd transformed himself with magic and introduced himself as Robert, a beginner adventurer. The girl's name was Tao, an adventurer ranked at B level. Having trained for years, Tao was now looking for a romantic relationship, and soon after meeting Lloyd, she decided he would be her boyfriend. Coincidentally, Lloyd was planning to explore a dungeon, and Tao chose to tag along, partly for adventure and partly to get closer to Lloyd. Meanwhile, Lloyd took this as a chance to study Kujutsu directly from her. When they fought some monster wolves, Tao believed they had already defeated the dungeon boss, but as she opened a treasure chest, a new threat appeared, a terrifying skeletal monster known as a lich. When Lloyd asked what it was, Tao refused to answer and pushed him away. Tao was secretly trying to buy time for Lloyd to escape. But because she didn't explain her plan, Lloyd misunderstood and decided to return to the fight. Meanwhile, Tao was struggling. She feared death and was mentally shaken by the lich's taunts. Still, remembering Lloyd's praise, she chose not to give up. She pushed herself to the limit, managing to break the lich's magic shield. But she collapsed soon after, too exhausted to continue. Just as the lich prepared to strike, Lloyd returned and protected her. To defeat the lich, Lloyd combined Kujutsu with his own magic. The lich thought he was retreating, but Lloyd was actually preparing his breathing and stance for a powerful technique. Then he attacked, fast and precise. Each strike cut through the enemy's defenses with deadly force. In the end, the dungeon boss was finally defeated. They retrieved the treasure and safely returned to the surface. Back at the castle, Lloyd found his clone in terrible shape, bruised and drained. Apparently, Silpha had pushed it through intense training without rest. Lloyd checked the items they brought back. Almost everything had turned to junk, except a damaged dagger and a treasure chest. But Lloyd still saw value in them. He used the dagger for magical experiments, converting it into liquid mana. It turned out the blade contained an enhancement spell. By analyzing the liquid, Lloyd discovered its components and quickly gathered the materials needed to recreate the enchantment. Between his experiments, Lloyd also resumed sword training with Silpha, which made her happy. She had been worried about his declining sword skills lately. After training, Lloyd returned to his lab work. By mixing oil, silver, and magic powder, he was close to perfecting a powerful magic liquid. His goal was to invent a magic mechanism to enhance weapons. To do this, he needed a large supply of blades. Fortunately, his brother Albert had plenty of guards. Lloyd asked to borrow their swords and began modifying them. Out of 120 weapons, he successfully enhanced 70, an incredible feat. According to Albert, even professional mages couldn't enchant that many weapons. The next day, Lloyd and his brother's group set off to hunt monsters. On the way, Albert teased Silpha, who seemed unusually close to Lloyd. Although Silpha had feelings for Lloyd, Albert assumed she had special feelings for him instead. His comment irritated Silpha, and just as she was about to draw her sword, a swarm of monsters suddenly blocked their path. Using his Kujutsu breathing technique, Lloyd had actually sensed them earlier, but chose to remain quiet and pretended not to notice anything. When the troops began advancing to fight the monsters, they easily took them down one by one. It turned out the weapon enchantments that Lloyd had applied made their swords significantly sharper. The effect was so drastic that even the soldiers were startled by the newfound power. Just as a monster jumped into their carriage, Tao suddenly appeared and kicked it away. After saving Lloyd, she introduced herself and offered to assist the group. Aside from wanting to help, Tao was also curious about Lloyd, since he used the same jutsu technique as the adventurer Robert. That night, Lloyd accidentally bumped into Silpha while she was changing clothes. The situation grew awkward when she ended up pinning him down. Tao, witnessing the scene, mocked Silpha by calling her a perverted student. Silpha, unwilling to accept the insult, immediately confronted Tao, and a fight broke out between the two. Not long after, a new monster appeared at their campsite. The soldiers were quickly mobilized to deal with it, but the creature was too powerful. Tao decided to join the battle, while Silpha kept her distance to protect Lloyd. Albert launched a powerful magic attack, amplified by the enchanted sword, which took the monster down in one hit. However, the monster soon revived, along with even more of them. This was caused by a demon hiding within them, named Pazuzu. By possessing the monsters, Pazuzu could control and continuously heal them using mana. No matter how much they attacked, the monsters kept regenerating. Upon learning this from Grimm, Lloyd became fascinated by the energy transfer method Pazuzu used. Instead of worrying about the battle, he stayed behind the tent to study the magic. Feeling arrogant from his advantage, Pazuzu began taunting the humans and even called Lloyd a useless crybaby to provoke Silpha. Angered by the insult, Silpha stepped up to confront him. Calmly, she approached the possessed beast and slashed it with precision, forcing Pazuzu out of the bear-wolf monster's body. Believing Pazuzu to be powerless now, Silpha threatened him to surrender. But Pazuzu still had one trick left. By spreading a poisonous gas around him, he paralyzed anyone who inhaled it. Silpha suddenly found herself unable to move. Thanks to her breathing technique, Tao was immune to the poison and quickly protected the weakened Silpha. Unfortunately, Tao's martial arts weren't enough to defeat Pazuzu. To break free from his grip, Tao had to use her special technique, which left her immobilized after use. Pazuzu then released a more potent poison, aiming to convert Tao and others into his subordinates. Meanwhile, Lloyd was casually playing in a stream. Realizing someone was still moving freely within the poison, Pazuzu ordered all monsters to attack. But Lloyd used this opportunity to test a new spell he had recently learned. By channeling mana in a specific pattern, he freed the monsters from Pazuzu's control, rendering them harmless. This enraged Pazuzu. In retaliation, he unleashed a massive wave of mana to intimidate Lloyd. Whatever Pazuzu did had no effect on Lloyd. Moreover, because Lloyd had a vast amount of mana, it was actually Pazuzu who felt intimidated by him. Coincidentally, Lloyd wanted to try a certain spell on Pazuzu. However, to activate the spell, he had to place it inside a barrier. Realizing this, Pazuzu tried hard to escape. But no matter how hard he tried, the barrier created by Lloyd could still reach him. Lloyd was also able to merge himself with Grimm, drastically increasing the speed of his spellcasting. When Lloyd unleashed the dimensional sealing spell, Pazuzu was completely trapped. He struggled to escape and could only writhe, begging for mercy. While the demon was trapped inside the barrier, Lloyd launched a magic attack consisting of 4 elements. Initially, he planned to keep attacking for 30 minutes. But before 5 minutes had passed, Pazuzu already showed signs of being on the brink of death. At the same time, the people who had been poisoned began to regain consciousness. Lloyd then explained to them that a wizard named Roberto was the one who defeated the demon and saved them. After the incident, Albert and Lloyd returned to the palace to meet the king. On that occasion, Albert suggested that his younger brother should also be given the right to compete for the throne. However, since from the beginning Lloyd was not interested in the position, he flatly refused and continued his activities as if nothing had happened. After returning from hunting, Lloyd found a werewolf that wanted to follow him home. Because of that, Lloyd decided to keep it as a pet and named it Shiro. In his spare time, Lloyd tried to teach Shiro to understand simple commands. As a result, Shiro was able to understand those commands, but did not yet comprehend more complex instructions. Then, Sylphie suggested that Lloyd consult with Elise. She was Lloyd's older sister, 3 years his senior. When Lloyd arrived at Elise's place, Elise immediately jumped and kissed Lloyd because she was overwhelmed by his cuteness. Besides that, Elise also hugged Shiro and petted him like her own pet. Seeing Elise's attitude, Sylphie doubted whether she truly understood the concept of mana. Because of that, Sylphie told Lloyd to just go home. However, when Lloyd asked Elise to show her pet monster, the monster suddenly appeared behind them. This made Lloyd assume that Elise was capable of giving complicated commands to her monster. Therefore, he asked Elise to teach him how to communicate with Shiro. Elise explained that the key was love. With love, one could understand monsters and move them according to their will. Sylphie and Elise's servant did not understand this explanation, but Lloyd quickly realized that Elise did not directly command the animals. Instead, unconsciously, Elise connected with them through mana. When Lloyd tried to understand and apply this concept, he succeeded in controlling Shiro according to his will. Not long after, Albert invited Lloyd somewhere. He wanted to introduce him to Diane, his older brother who was a blacksmith. When Diane heard that his younger brother had strengthened a sword, he found it hard to believe. So he asked Lloyd to prove it in front of him. Lloyd demonstrated his skills, and Diane was truly amazed by his ability to strengthen weapons. Without hesitation, Diane immediately invited him to collaborate on developing the best magical weapons. Their first weapon would be a sword that could shoot fire. However, although Lloyd managed to create the magic mechanism, the metal broke instantly before it could be forged. Shortly after, Silpha came to help him. Unfortunately, she couldn't do much either because the strengthening material they used was poor quality. To forge the magic sword, they needed a rare material called hematite. Since hematite was a rare item, Silpha suggested searching for it in a dungeon. She also wanted to take Lloyd exploring the dungeon to broaden his experience. When registering at the Adventurers Guild, Lloyd tried to suppress his power so it wouldn't stand out. But even hidden, his magic was ranked A, the second highest rank after Silver Sword. The silver sword was Silpha's nickname when she was still an adventurer. Realizing they would explore the dungeon, Tao came to offer his help. With this, their dungeon conquest finished faster than expected. That night, Lloyd sensed an intruder. To prevent the intruder from escaping, Lloyd quickly created a large barrier. Then, when he tried to talk to the intruder attacked with a strange poison magic. Besides Lloyd, no one else could purify it because the poison was made with a special kind of mana unknown to ordinary people. Although still able to move, Lloyd chose to stay silent and let the intruder escape. He thought the person might lead him to a hideout. Earlier, Silpha had told him about the existence of bounty hunters. Because of the unique ability, Lloyd was sure the intruder was one of them. When he returned to the base, Ren reported to his comrades that he had been discovered and had to run away. However, he got important information about the palace producing weapons in large quantities. Soon after, one of their members noticed someone watching them. Since they had been discovered, Lloyd challenged them without using any protection. Babylon was the first opponent he faced. As shown, he was more flexible than the others, able to twist his body without feeling any pain. Besides Babylon, the other members also had their own unique abilities. Crow could turn the mana in his voice into a destructive curse. Galileo was able to transmute mana into a sticky, spider-like liquid. Meanwhile, Talia had the power to share her wounds with anyone she could see. After observing all of their attacks, Lloyd launched a counterattack, mainly to analyze their defenses. When Lloyd started attacking, no one was able to match him. Even though Lloyd fought with bare hands and used Silpha's swordsmanship techniques, after everyone was defeated, Galilei explained why they became criminals. All this time, they didn't have full control over their powers and ended up endangering the people around them. Since no one wanted to accept them, they were forced to do dirty work. Knowing this, Lloyd then did something to fix their mana flow. That way, they could control their power and wouldn't hurt others anymore. Although it was his first attempt, it seemed the spell had already succeeded. Because of that, Lloyd asked them to try the power on him again. However, there was something more important to tell him. They wanted to talk about many things because Lloyd had shown them a new path. Lloyd was not interested in listening, but to break through their mistakes, they wanted to tell how they originally became bounty hunters. Galilei explained that their leader was the owner of teleportation magic. But because he couldn't control his power, he was always moving around, so they rarely met him. Still, before he left, he gave the idea to form a bounty hunter team. Because of this, they started taking many jobs and had hope for the future. At the same time, they also heard news that the ruler of Lordost was preparing for war. While listening to Galilei's explanation, suddenly a letter was sent by teleportation magic. The letter was from Jade, the person who had been their leader all along. In the letter, Jade stated that she had overthrown the ruler of Lordost and was now the new ruler. After receiving the letter, they were eager to meet Jade. Ren also begged Lloyd to join them to help fix Jade's mana flow. Interested in teleportation magic, Lloyd went with them to the kingdom of Lordost. To speed up the journey, he even flew them at high speed using magic. Soon after, someone came to pick him up. But since Lloyd was no longer there, Silpha assumed he was kidnapped by the bounty hunters and the people of Lordost. Hearing this, without hesitation, Albert declared war on Lordost. Meanwhile, when Lloyd was almost reaching the Lordost palace, the others collapsed on the way. Because of this, Lloyd had to let them rest for a while. While in the forest, Ren tried to find food. He wanted to show off his skills since he grew up in the forest area. When Ren was young, Babylon told him that his poison had killed his parents. Since no one cared about him anymore, Jade brought him to the base to join the team. On a different day, Jade revealed that she was the second child of the ruler of Lordost. The reason she formed this group was to build power to fight against her evil family. At that time, she wanted to become the ruler and restore the kingdom so everyone could live happily. After a short rest, the bounty hunter team continued their journey. But because Lloyd was fast asleep, Ren suggested Grimm stay behind to accompany Lloyd. The reason was, he feared Jade might be manipulated, and had sent the letter to trap them. Grimm said Lloyd could protect himself even while sleeping, so he preferred to go with them to ensure Lloyd's safety. Upon arriving at the palace, they were warmly welcomed. Seeing Jade had achieved her goal, they were very moved, even shedding tears of joy. Actually, Ren wanted to reveal many things to her, but somehow he couldn't speak. Understanding the situation, Grimm intended to wake Lloyd up. However, when he tried to fetch him, all the castle's inhabitants behaved strangely. It turned out the person they met was not their old friend. In fact, it was a demon who had taken over Jade's body to gain her teleportation ability. Grimm had tried to fight, but the demon easily knocked him away with a single blow. Besides targeting Jade, they also wanted the abnormal powers owned by Rin and her friends. To weaken their consciousness, the demon recounted all the suffering Jade experienced when her body was taken over. But when noticing a strange spell on Ren's hand, the demon's focus shifted to that spell. It wondered about its effect and who cast it. When Lloyd arrived there, a very bright magic circle appeared. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurred that could destroy anything it touched. With his teleportation ability, the demon Gisam, who possessed Jade's body, managed to avoid the explosion. Some of his followers also survived because they were outside the blast range. After that, Lloyd asked the others to leave the place while he would take care of the rest. Gisam ordered his subordinates to chase anyone trying to escape, as they were experts at hiding and would be difficult to find. Lloyd would not let that happen, so he immediately bombarded them with his magical power. When Gisam started attacking, the magic energy he unleashed could penetrate barriers. If Lloyd didn't dodge, he might have died because the magic could pierce his heart. Grimm explained that demons were classified by ranks, from first-class demons to the 10th class, which was the lowest. However, the Gisam Lloyd faced was not in those classes. He was a high-class demon, a noble demon. Because of that, Grimm warned that even Lloyd might not be able to defeat him. Still, Lloyd did not back down. He kept approaching Gisam, intending to fight him. When Gisam asked his name, Lloyd replied that he was just an ordinary 7th prince. Gisam remembered something about Lloyd from Jade's memory. He felt a strong desire to meet him. Lloyd also stated that he wanted to meet Jade, but it seemed that would never happen. For now, Grimm still advised him to run. However, Lloyd remained silent, giving Gisam the chance to strike first. Although using little mana, Gisam's attack could penetrate thick defenses. To prevent more serious damage, Lloyd decided to evade it. After being attacked repeatedly, Lloyd managed to land safely without any injuries. However, shortly after landing, Gisam suddenly launched a surprise attack. Using his teleportation ability, he quickly and accurately threw a magical spear at Lloyd. Meanwhile, the bounty hunter team was still being chased by Gisam's minions. When Babylon struggled to open the gate, Galilei used his slime net to stop the enemy's movement. Then, Chrome subdued them with his cursed words. However, even after using this combination attack, the demons were still able to rise again. Taria had to step in and use the power of various pains so the demons could not move. Taria asked her friends to leave first, but Ren did not want to abandon her. However, Galilei pushed him out and closed the gate again. It seemed he intended to accompany Taria even if she used her deadly attack. The demons thought that would never happen, but Taria didn't hesitate to behead herself, so they would be beheaded too. Ren and the others were already hopeless about the situation. They couldn't stop or save Taria. Fortunately, the Saloum Kingdom troops arrived there. Although their main goal was Lloyd, their arrival saved Taria's life. At the same time, Lloyd, who was pierced by the magical spear, suddenly turned to dust. Then, he appeared behind Gisam and attacked him with his sword. Unfortunately, the attack still missed because the opponent was able to teleport instantly. All this time, Silpha had been holding back her true swordsmanship. If she ever fought seriously, her sword would simply break. It couldn't withstand the full force of her power. But if things kept going like this, she knew she wouldn't be able to defeat powerful demons like before. The mercenary team thought that reinforcements had finally arrived, but instead, they were still being treated as enemies. Pointing her sword at them, Silpha demanded to know where Lloyd was. If they refused to answer or dared to lie, she warned she'd cut off their heads. Ren tried to explain that Lloyd was fighting a demon. However, because Lloyd had previously told them not to reveal his true power to anyone from the palace, they had no choice but to lie, saying he was just battling a small fry demon, but Silpha wasn't buying it. She was ready to swing. With complete honesty, Ren said it was understandable if she didn't trust them. But right now, Lloyd was in a battle against a demon who had taken someone very precious from him. Just then, a demon approached them, and sensing its hostility, Liru, Elise's pet, immediately launched a fierce attack. Afterward, Elise reassured Silpha that Ren and the others could be trusted, because if they were enemies, Liru would have attacked them too. Meanwhile, Gisam destroyed the bridge that led into the inner palace. That way, Silpha and her troops wouldn't be able to reach the battlefield, and Lloyd would be free to fight at full power without holding back, At the same time, a brutal fight was happening below. Although the demons weren't exceptionally strong, their regenerative abilities left the kingdom's soldiers overwhelmed and struggling to keep up. Back to Silpha, she still hadn't given up on reaching Lloyd. She even asked Shiro to leap across the river, but the distance was too far. Then suddenly, a Class 8 demon ambushed her. Unlike the small fry demons outside, this one had mastered sword techniques, and its combat skill was on par with Silpha's. Elsewhere, Albert had just unleashed his ultimate move. By combining his sword skills with his most powerful magic, he incinerated the demons until they could no longer regenerate. Back in Silpha's fight, the battle seemed evenly matched, but the demon held a slight edge. It was using the elite sword style of the kingdom of Lordost because the demon had possessed the body of a skilled swordsman. Even so, Silpha wasn't backing down. She unleashed her demonic sword style, a technique she had mastered through her own training, not by stealing someone else's body. Drawing the sword that Lloyd had crafted for her, Silpha declared that no stolen body could ever rival the true achievements of human wisdom. A few days earlier, Lloyd had given her the sword, not because of its magic, but because of its durability and flexibility. He had sensed that Silpha was always holding something back when she fought. Hearing that made Silpha feel truly understood. Maybe for the first time, she promised to treasure the sword with all her heart. And when she swung it for the first time, the results were incredible. Her strike was so powerful, it sliced the demon clean in half. When Gisom took over Jade's consciousness, Jade's last words were, "You will lose." However, Gisom ignored her words and immediately took control of her body. Moments after Silpha defeated her enemy, the water around the castle suddenly evaporated, obscuring vision. This phenomenon was caused by Lloyd. Previously, Lloyd had been relentlessly attacked by Gisom. To deal with these attacks, he tried various methods, but none succeeded because Gisom's magical spear easily pierced through any barrier. Moreover, the spear was powerful and extremely fast. Anyone hit would surely die. The most troublesome was Gisom's teleportation magic. Lloyd had to keep moving swiftly to survive the sudden strikes. Because Gisom's attacks were so disruptive, Lloyd retaliated by casting a dual spell as quickly as possible to avoid being hit. Although Gisom thought he wouldn't die even if attacked, he still dodged to avoid having his clothes burned. As a result, Lloyd's attack landed in the water, generating thick steam. Even though nothing could be seen, Lloyd used his kaijutsu technique to predict his opponent's position. Meanwhile, Gisom could no longer attack because his vision was obstructed. This gave Lloyd a significant advantage. However, he couldn't just attack recklessly, as it would be dangerous if his position was discovered. To conceal himself, Lloyd tried attacking using numerous earth clones. When Lloyd attacked with his clones, Gisom could guess the real one based on the sword used. Although the real Lloyd was removed, the clones remained standing, none disappearing. It turned out Gisom had been attacking Lloyd's clones. Meanwhile, the real Lloyd was in front, preparing to unleash a fiery attack on Gisom. Finding it hard to distinguish the real one, Gisom had no choice but to attack all of them brutally. Meanwhile, Lloyd quietly approached, hiding his aura. Using an energy-absorbing sword, he planned to unravel the magic used by his enemy during attacks. This way, he could understand how the magic worked and find a way to counter it. While analyzing the mana inside Jade's body, Lloyd tried to find out if Jade's consciousness remained. But with no reaction, Lloyd understood what he must do. Without any protection, Lloyd told Gisom that he was indeed born strong. But if that was all, it would only bore him. This statement irritated Gisom slightly, but he didn't care and immediately teleported to attack. However, every time Gisom teleported, Lloyd suddenly struck first. Wherever Gisom went, Lloyd could read his movements and hit him at his reappearance point. What Lloyd used wasn't magic, but a martial arts technique that maximized breathing control. Though his life wasn't at risk, Gisom felt extreme pain from the repeated strikes. Cornered, Gisom finally unleashed a noble demon's secret magic technique. By gathering energy from the atmosphere, he created a giant black sphere filled with powerful magical energy. However, when he released it, Lloyd easily nullified it with the same technique. After studying this magic before, Lloyd had tried combining them to observe the reaction. As seen just now, the black spheres neutralized each other completely until they vanished. Since the magic required an enormous amount of mana, Gisom initially trusted it solidly. but when he touched Lloyd's head, he realized Lloyd had an overwhelmingly large mana reserve. With such mana, Lloyd threatened to use the neutralizing reaction on him. That meant even a demon like Saloum could die. Soon after, Lloyd did exactly that. He sucked Saloum into a giant mana vortex and then crashed another mana blast to erase his presence. For a moment, Jade's shadow appeared in the sky, reminding Ren of when Jade spoke about the 7th Prince's greatness at their base. Back then, Jade was confident that the 7th Prince could erase their cursed magic. However, her friends didn't believe it and said they would serve the prince if his words truly came to pass. A short while later, Albert and the others came to meet Lloyd. Albert said he had heard everything, including the information about Jade's rebellion and the mercenaries who had asked for his help. The way Lloyd acted made Albert very proud of him. However, no matter what, they were still criminals living in a dark world. Because of that, they would face the consequences they deserved. Earlier, they had expressed their desire to atone for their mistakes by serving Lloyd for life. Therefore, Albert warned that if these criminals slipped up, everything would be Lloyd's responsibility. Calmly, Lloyd said that everything Albert said made sense, and he would take full responsibility for their mistakes. Not long after, Tao suddenly arrived to help Lloyd, who was in trouble. However, this time, he was truly not needed as it was already too late. Still, Albert spoke of him kindly. As a token of gratitude for Tao's past help, he was invited to a tea party as a sign of appreciation. Meanwhile, Silpha and the other girls went to bathe in the river. They didn't want to miss the chance since the river had turned into hot water. At the same time, Ren revealed his desire to work alongside Lloyd like Silpha. This way, more people would be on Lloyd's side,